Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Scout FPL tips video ahead of game week 21. I was about to say double game week 21, but as far as we know, game week 21 is actually a single game week. And just so you're aware, I am recording this video just ahead of the Man United game. The Man United game kicks off in about half an hour, so it's Wednesday night, just to timestamp this. So we haven't had the Man United part of the double yet, and we also haven't had Man City playing Tottenham on Thursday night as well. So just so you're fully aware. And if you enjoy these videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're listening on the podcast version, this is also on YouTube. So you can go to YouTube, Fantasy Football Scout, and there'll be some things on screen. So some stats from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Now, I will, if you're listening on audio and can't get on YouTube, I will just talk through them. And sometimes, these things are just there as visuals for discussion points. But we've got 4 different tips to go through today. So again, we're going to touch on the suspension tightrope. We haven't discussed that for a little while. We just want to touch in on that as we're coming to the end of the first phase of how the suspension tightrope works. We're going to go through the best mid-price strikers. So the striker pool seems to have diminished a little bit. There's been a few injuries and people are finding it harder to find strikers. So I feel like that's probably the biggest talking point of the week. So we're going to go through the strikers in some detail, a few little bits that I've prepared. Then we're going to look at the Brighton midfielders. We did discuss Brighton midfielders on the Scoutcast, but I've just looked into them a little bit more. They're still a very popular topic, so I want to cover those as the third tip. Then the fourth tip, we're going to look at captaincy for game week 21 as well. Like I say, we are mid-game week, so let's have a little bit of fun and look at the captaincy, even though, as always, some people might be very, very set on captaining a certain Erling Haaland. So let's get on with it. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. And the first tip is basically what's going on with the suspension tightrope. So there's been a couple of people that have asked. It's something I've covered, on the videos, because I do find on Fantasy Football Scout, if you go to the main page, go to the bottom right, you can see the suspension tightrope. And I do find it quite interesting. Now, I said we're getting towards the end of the first phase, and that's because after a team has played 19 games, the limit on 5 yellow cards is raised. So, and some teams have already played 19 games already. So there's not many players left on the tightrope. All of these teams have played at least 18 games now. So we are very, very close to the end. So basically these players, if they don't get booked in this game week, so in game week 21, their yellow card limit goes up and they're not suspended. So I'm going to run through them quickly, just so we're all aware, because there's some popular ones on here. Obviously, Jesus, he's still injured, so irrelevant. But Saka came onto the tightrope a couple of weeks ago. He's still there. Very popular player. Was robbed of an assist during game week 20. And Saliba as well. Not quite as popular as he was, but again, worth being aware of. And Gabriel, he got a late yellow card in the North London derby the other day. So owners of Gabriel will be hoping that he can avoid getting a booking this weekend against Man United. So just worth being aware of those Arsenal players. Very, very popular. We've got McAllister. He's the only one for Brighton. We're going to actually talk about him a little bit later when we get to Brighton. Again, just worth being aware of. Schlupp and Joel Ward. I mean, it's not, year 2005, so probably not that relevant. Christensen of Leeds, Rocker of Leeds, Robin Koch. And then we've got 2 Man United players, so Fred and Casemiro. So they're playing tonight. So by the time you watch this video, you'll know if they've picked up a suspension or not ahead of game week 21. So just really wanted to touch on this because I think it frames the rest of the video nicely. So we'll move on to the second tip, which is basically the best mid-price striker. Now, this is probably the favourite tip, but as I was preparing all the screens and everything, looking through, because we had a huge pool of strikers not that long ago. I think, before the World Cup wildcard rather, a lot of teams have moved away from, 3-5-2s. They've moved to 3 up top because we were sport for choice with strikers, and people tended to go for 3 strikers during the unlimited transfers as well. However, there was a little bit of news with Mitrovic when he got injured. He's missed a couple of penalties. He's back and healthy now, but now he's missing penalties. And what we liked about Mitrovic is he was on penalties. We've got Tony. He's right up here on this list as well, and he's obviously a suspension. Well, we don't know if he's getting a suspension. There's been a lot of people have been put off by Tony because of a potential suspension. Meanwhile, he's been absolutely, scoring every week, causing a lot of frustration. I know people like Andy. Let's talk FPL. Andy Teach Mode. He went for Tony last week and took the gamble. What I've got on screen for those watching, I've basically sorted all the strikers by XG over the season. Obviously, we're talking about mid-price strikers, so we're going to exclude Haaland and Kane. I kept them on here just so we have an idea, of where they fall, where the mid-place players fall compared to the premiums. So Haaland, no surprise, is top, 14.63 XG over the season. Second is Mitrovic, 11.17. Now, it's worth saying Fulham have had a lot of penalties, and he's missed at least 3 off the top of my head as well. But it just shows what a great option Mitrovic is. He's ahead of Kane, and Kane's had a few penalties himself. So I think it really does show the value of Mitrovic. Whether or not Mitrovic is on penalties now, I don't know. When he missed the one before the freak one in game week 20, Silva immediately came out and said Mitrovic will score the next one. Obviously, he didn't. It's also worth saying that Andreas Pereira had the ball and then it was given to Mitrovic. So in my mind, I said this on the Scoutcast, in my mind, I'm downgrading Mitrovic a little bit. I think he's absolutely brilliant, but I'm not going to rely on, him taking penalties anymore. But at 7.2 million, he's great value. Just behind Kane and Mitrovic, we have Tony, 10.42. He's played 17 games. Mitrovic has played 16. Now, the next one I really wanted to talk about is Darwin Núñez, because he's only played 13 games. He was suspended for a couple of games. He just missed a game through injury. Obviously, he was a new signing at the start of the season. He's got 7.4 XG and 9.07 XGI. So considering he's only played 13 games, I think, it's an incredible effort, and especially without the penalties. So I guess to round those ones up, Mitrovic and Núñez have been very, very popular players, since wildcard. I think some people have moved off them, but I still think they're absolutely brilliant assets. And I prefer them to Tony, not just because they don't have a suspension looming, but because of what I'm going to get to when I move on to the next section. Havertz, he's okay. He's got 5.1 XG. I think, now he seems to be nailed in the Chelsea team. Being nailed in the Chelsea team is no easy feat. I think he's definitely worth considering as a differential. I know Gianni absolutely loves Havertz. I think he's worth considering, but for me, Núñez and Mitrovic are still clear of him. There's one I really wanted to talk about, and that's Nketiah. Now, myself, I've already got 3 Arsenal players, but at his price, just 6.6 million, he's played 16 games and has an XGI of 3.78. Now, don't forget, he only came in for Jesus when Jesus got injured. There was a lot of, little cameos here and there earlier in the season. So I think Nketiah is well worth, considering, especially as they have that double game week coming up as well. So depending on team structure, potentially he'd be my favourite one. But I want to move away from stats. We've outlined all the players that look good. What I've now done is I've gone on Fantasy Football Scout. On the fixture ticker, I've sorted by attacking rating. So who's got the best attacking fixtures over the next 6 game weeks? Arsenal are top. Now, a big reason they're top is because they have Man United at home. It's not an easy fixture, I don't think, although it's at home. Then they've got Everton away, should be a very nice fixture. The reason they're top though is they've got this double, 2 home fixtures against Brentford and Man City, followed by Villa away, Leicester away, and Bournemouth at home. And that's why I'm a bit gutted. I can't get to Nketiah. I can't justify, using my transfers to move an Arsenal player out to get him in. But if you have the option to do it, I think, he's an absolutely fantastic option. Then we move down the attacking ratings. Man City are second, and obviously we're going to be very popular anyway. Then we've got Leeds in 3rd place. Now, I wanted to say we've got Fulham are pretty high up here. Fulham are 6th in the ticker. And then Liverpool are just behind them, in about mid-table. They've got about the 10th, 11th best fixtures. So that again backs up, Núñez and Mitrovic as very, very viable assets for the striker spot. So all 3, I like them all. I like Nketiah, I like Darwin, I like Mitrovic. I certainly wouldn't be selling any of them anyway. However, the reason I didn't like Tony as much is I've got something on screen from Ben Crellin, and that's the game week 25 blanks. So it all depends on the semi-finals of the League Cup. So Man United play Forest and Newcastle play Southampton. Now, if the favourites win as expected, we'll see blanks for Man United and Brentford. We'll also see blanks for Newcastle and Brighton. Which again, so then that's another thing with Tony. He's obviously had really, really good form. He's got a couple of decent fixtures. but he's got this potential suspension looming, and he could have a blank if Man United beat Forest. And don't forget that cup semi-final is over 2 legs as well. And I just think in my head that makes it me think it's more likely the favourite will win, over 2 legs. So for me, that's why I'm not completely ruling out Tony, but I think it is, excuse the word, it's a bit of a gamble. And then Newcastle against Brighton. I don't think many people are looking at Callum Wilson at the moment. Now, there is a chance that Southampton beat Newcastle or Forest beat Man United, and then we have blanks for West Ham, Forest, Southampton and Leeds. So just worth bearing that in mind. So to sum up, I think if you have the money, I'd go for Darwin. Not only that, they potentially could get a double in the next few weeks. The likelihood's not, it's not 100%, but there is a chance that they get that double. And he is back in training. So I'd expect to see him play at the weekend. And I think, he's a brilliant option. Otherwise, Mitrovic, he's still an excellent option as well. I will say, I'm a little biased. I've owned him for a while. I had him straight away from a wild card. But, I don't see anything wrong with Mitrovic with the fixtures. He doesn't have the blank in 25 either. And as I mentioned, Tony has risk of a blank and suspension. So he's a bit of a gamble. So moving on to the third tip, who's the best Brighton midfielder? Now, the first thing I've got on screen was actually from the Scoutcast. So I think it was either Seb or Joe put this together. So I just wanted to put this on the screen. So this had this is all the Brighton players, so not just midfielders. But if we highlight just the midfielders in our discussion, Matoma was top. He has an XGI per 90 of 0.5. And as we discussed, that's actually better than someone like Bruno Fernandes. So excellent underlying data there. Obviously, it's a very, very small sample. He's only played 5 games for Brighton in the league. Trossard and Gross just behind him. Trossard's at 0.45, but there's something going on there. So I wouldn't be going for Trossard. Gross 0.4. We've got Solly March, who was discussed a lot at 0.34, followed by McAllister at 0.33. Now, I mentioned on the Scoutcast that McAllister was the one I was looking at. There were obviously the comments from both himself and from De Zerbi about McAllister playing a more advanced role. He prefers playing that role. He obviously played quite offensive for Argentina, when they won the World Cup just a couple of months ago. So for me, I actually really, really am tempted by McAllister. Now, the main reason is because he's on penalties. I know there's a lot of analytical FPL accounts that I follow, and quite a few of them actually had McAllister a few months ago, just because he was on penalties and had okay underlying data. But in this new role that he's supposedly going to be playing, we'd hope that data will start to get a bit of an uptick, and he'll start to compete with players like Matoma for underlying statistics. Now, what I decided to do, I went in the Fantasy Football Scout members area just to have a little look. There's a great little tool where you can see average position by game week. Now, I know people listening won't be able to see this, and it's a tiny sample. It's just a couple of games because he came back late from the World Cup. But what we got on screen, if you're watching on the right-hand side, you can see game week 20 is highlighted in green, and just behind it is game week 19. So you can see from this, again, very small sample. He is playing more advanced than he was. He still had a couple of games, playing more advanced. But it's just very interesting. And obviously, I want to see this develop because they might blank as well in game week 25, as we just discussed, with teams like Brentford. I want to see a couple more games to see if this is actually definitely a thing. But as someone who's not been able to watch 90 minutes, of every Brighton game, it's nice to be able to see it in an easy to see chart that he has been playing at least beyond the halfway line or on the halfway line as his average position. So for me, I think I'm going to go for McAllister when I go for a Brighton player. Matoma will obviously be very popular. You can save $500,000. But yeah, so that's that. And the final tip is game week 21 captaincy. Now, as always, I've used the Rate My Team tool from Fantasy Football Scout members area and Haaland. It actually surprised me. I always like running this because I always have an idea, in my mind of where this is going to fall. And I actually expected Salah to be a little bit closer to Haaland. But this model has really, cottoned on to Haaland being a very, very popular captain and one who I know his output's not been as good recently, but he's clear in this model. 7.5 projected points. So to put that in perspective, De Bruyne 6.15, and then Salah's in third place, but he's all the way down at 5.64. And I mean, that is then clear of Martinelli at 4.36. There's a lot of fixtures this week that are tough. And I've seen a lot of teams, you know, people posting their teams on places like Twitter saying, you know, oh, I've got such a bad team for this week. But I think part of that, you know, is we've got tough fixtures. I mean, Arsenal are playing Man United, as we mentioned. So I do think, you know, obviously a lot depends what happens Thursday night. I do think it's going to be a bit of a no-brainer for me to go to Haaland. But, you know, if Haaland was injured, you know, if Haaland got a little knock or anything, I'd be more than happy captaining Salah. I'm sure people would be happy captaining De Bruyne. And then, you know, a lot of people have got Kane as well. I think for me, if I was going to go for some kind of crazy differential, I'd say with the way Arsenal are playing at the moment, with the way Saka's playing at the moment, the fact we expect Saka to be on penalties, I probably would look at someone like Saka. So the tip for that one is basically Haaland again. I know it's boring, but I wanted to look at the numbers and see what they were like, and see. I mean, even if you need to choose your vice captain, I think it's useful having a look at stuff like that. If he gets a knock, then you could look at Salah or KDB, and I guess then the game would be a little bit more fun. You know, if we all have different captains. But thanks a lot for going through that with me today. Obviously, like I said, this is on Wednesday night. So there's, you know, we haven't even had the fun bit yet. We haven't had the double game week. But, you know, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll be back next week with another video. Thank you.